We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. It started with a seat warmer. Sunday mornings were usually simple for Mason Briggs. Coffee, cartoons humming in the background while his 7-year-old daughter Lily tried to convince her little brother to stop feeding cereal to the dog. But this time, a light November frost whispered something different into the air. Mason slipped into his wife's SUV, her favorite, a pearly white Lexus she adored like it was a third child. He was headed to get the winter tires changed, one of those silent husbandly tasks no one ever thanked you for, except maybe when it snowed. He sat, reached for the start button, and paused. The driver's seat was warm. Nothing unusual. But the passenger seat was warm too. Set to level 2. Strange. Only 2 people had access to this car. It wasn't the kind of thing you'd usually notice. But Mason was the kind of man who'd already been burned once in life. You don't forget the scent of smoke after surviving the fire. His first marriage had died quietly in Atlanta, smothered under the weight of his own sins. Mason wasn't proud of it. A year-long affair with a coworker named Eva that started with long lunches and ended with cold silences. His ex-wife, Dana, had found out the way most women do. Not because he confessed, but because someone else showed her the truth. A private investigator's photos. Dana didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just left. It had taken him years to forgive himself. And it took even longer to believe someone like Sienna, now his wife, could ever truly love him, especially after he moved across the country to start over in Seattle. But Sienna did. At least he thought so. They'd been married 6 years, had 2 kids, built a life. Sienna was charming and smart. A marketing executive climbing the corporate ladder. And until that moment, that quiet flicker of seat warmth, Mason had never once doubted her faithfulness. Still, he said nothing when he came home. Sienna was in the kitchen, putting on her coat, purse dangling from one arm. "I'm heading to the mall," she said, grabbing her keys with a smile. "You need anything?" Mason blinked. "Nope. Have fun." She kissed him on the cheek and walked out the door. But he wasn't thinking about malls. He was thinking about that passenger seat. 3 hours later, Sienna returned with a single shopping bag. Not bad for a woman known for her Target raids. Mason leaned over from the couch. "Hey, I left my sunglasses in your car earlier. You see them?" "They're in the console," she said too quickly. "Out in the driveway." Mason opened the door again. The sunglasses were right where she said they'd be. But now the passenger seat heater was off. And, suddenly, it wasn't about sunglasses anymore. He stood there, alone in the cold, hand gripping the door. His breath visible, his mind racing. That night, they made love. She smiled. She joked. She laughed with the kids. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. The next day, while pretending to be working from home, Mason called a private investigator. His name was Jackson Voss, a blunt, gray-haired ex-FBI guy who now took suburban cheating cases with a steely glint in his eyes. "If she's stepping out," Jackson said, "we'll find out. Takes about a week. But fair warning, the truth isn't always kind." Mason paid the retainer in full. 3 days later, Jackson called him into the office. Mason's heart pounded as he walked in. Jackson didn't sugarcoat things. "She's not sleeping with him. Not yet. But she's close." Mason's mouth dried. "Who?" "Her boss. Cole Stratton. Director of accounts at her firm. I did some digging. Serial womanizer. Married twice. Left both wives for younger employees. He's targeting your wife." Mason clenched his jaw. Jackson slid over 2 small audio files. "She's resisting, for now. But Stratton's using pressure tactics. Offering her a leadership role. Invited her to a retreat next month. You've got time, but not much." Mason took the recordings home like they were bombs. He didn't sleep that night. He just listened. On the tape, Stratton's voice was oily smooth. "You've got talent, Sienna. I see it. I want to help you shine. But there's a cost to visibility. You understand that, right?" Sienna chuckled nervously. "I'm married, Cole." He responded, "So am I. Doesn't mean we can't enjoy a weekend. Just talking. Just ideas. Maybe." That one word. It shattered something inside him. But this time, Mason wouldn't make the same mistake he made in his first marriage. He wouldn't walk blindly into betrayal. This time, he'd face it before it happened. And if it did, he'd burn the man who touched his wife. But not with fists. With something much, much worse. Friday evening arrived with heavy clouds rolling in over Seattle, veiling the sky in dim gray. Mason stood on the back porch, a cold beer in his hand, pretending to enjoy the view of their fenced yard. But he wasn't thinking about the lawn. His mind was playing the audio clips over and over again. Cole Stratton's words echoed like a ticking time bomb, each sentence laced with intent. Calculated. Sleazy. Inside, Sienna was baking brownies with the kids, her laughter rising and falling like music he used to believe in. She looked radiant under the warm kitchen lights, her auburn hair pulled back loosely, cheeks flushed from the oven heat, not guilt. To any outsider, she was the perfect mother, the devoted wife. The woman who didn't know her husband had just hired someone to follow her. But Mason knew better now, knew how temptation could dress itself in ambition. He'd lived it. Their daily life hadn't changed on the surface. Mornings still began with hurried breakfast routines, coffee spills, last-minute school lunches, and missed buses. Sienna still kissed his cheek and called him love. Mason still said, "Have a great day." But now, every gesture felt rehearsed, staged, and in the quiet of his office, where no one could hear, he wrote everything down. Every word, every gesture. He tracked changes in her voice, her pauses when she spoke of work, how her messages became briefer, colder. She started wearing perfume again, subtle, floral, and new. He made note of it all. One night, he peeked at her phone while she was in the shower, not because he wanted to be that guy, but because he already was. There were no texts from Cole, no emails. She had either deleted them or used another app. That silence said more than words ever could. Mason decided to test her. He came into the bedroom one night as she sat brushing her hair, wearing her soft pink robe. She looked up in the mirror and smiled. "What's that look?" "Let's take a trip," he said, walking up behind her and wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "Just us. We can get away. Like we used to." Her brush paused mid-stroke. "When?" "This month. Anywhere. I just miss you." She hesitated. "You sure you're not just trying to get away from work?" "I'm sure," he lied. "I'll check my calendar," she said quietly. "There's a potential team-building thing that same weekend, but maybe I can move some things." A potential team-building event. He knew exactly what that was. That night, Mason lay awake beside her, heart pounding. She'd been soft in his arms, her head on his chest, but her mind wasn't fully there. He could feel it. The next morning, he called Jackson Voss again. "She's still resisting, but she's leaning," Jackson confirmed. "Cole's playing the long game. Your wife's being tested and tempted. But I heard something new." Mason straightened in his chair. "What?" "He's using your past against you." Mason's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "Stratton mentioned your prior marriage. Said, and I quote, 'He's already been a cheater once, hasn't he? Probably still is. Guys like him don't change.'" Mason nearly crushed his phone. That information wasn't public. Not unless Sienna told him, or unless someone else dug deep. Either way, Cole was getting personal. Mason didn't rage. He didn't explode. He went into strategy mode. And his plan didn't involve screaming or storming into Sienna's office. He had something far more potent. Truth, timing, and proof. He scheduled a dinner at one of their favorite restaurants, a rooftop Italian place overlooking the harbor. Sienna arrived looking beautiful in a navy blue blouse and dark jeans, lipstick slightly bolder than usual. She kissed him hello, unaware that Jackson was already seated 2 tables away with a view of their every move. They chatted like a couple still in love. Mason smiled through the bitterness. When dessert came, he leaned forward. "I have to ask, are you happy, Sienna?" She blinked. "Of course. Are you tempted?" The fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Tempted. By Cole." Her expression cracked, just for a second. A flicker of panic. "Where is this coming from?" she asked, voice defensive, soft. "From the passenger seat warmer. From the perfume. From the text you delete." Silence stretched like a noose between them. Then she whispered, "I haven't done anything, Mason. Yet." "I wouldn't," she insisted, eyes glossing with tears. "I swear." He reached into his coat, pulled out a small envelope, and placed it gently on the table. "Open it." She did. Inside were stills from Jackson's surveillance footage. One with her and Cole in a cafe. Another of them walking too close in the parking lot. And one of her car outside Cole's apartment on Saturday, the day she told Mason she was at the mall alone. Sienna didn't speak. She just slowly placed the envelope down and lowered her gaze. Mason sighed, tired, hurt but eerily calm. I know what's happening. I know how it starts. I've lived it. And I'm not judging you. But if you keep going down this road, I promise you, I won't follow. She looked up at him, finally shattered. I didn't kiss him. I didn't touch him. But you were about to. And that's enough. Back home, things got colder. Sienna cried that night. Mason didn't hold her. He needed space. She tried to explain, but he asked her not to. Not yet. He needed time. Not to heal, but to plot. Because Mason had learned something vital in his own years of guilt. Sometimes, mercy only works when it's backed by power. So now, he would gather more than proof. He'd gather leverage, and he would flip the entire game Cole Stratton had played, just not the way anyone expected. And when the time came, he wouldn't just expose Cole. He'd ruin him. The following week was a masterclass in performance. Mason played his role as the distant but composed husband. Sienna, meanwhile, moved like a woman walking on broken glass, carefully, anxiously, trying not to cut herself on her own guilt. The air between them wasn't silence. It was tension, charged and humming, like a live wire between their hearts. Mason didn't explode. He didn't raise his voice. That scared her more. Every morning, she lingered longer over goodbye kisses. Every evening, she cleaned more furiously, cooked elaborate dinners, asked about his day with a brightness that felt rehearsed. Mason played along. He smiled. He nodded. But his mind wasn't there. It was with Cole Stratton. Because Mason wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, Mason went to work early, but he didn't go to the office. He parked outside a gym Cole frequented, the one Jackson had mentioned in his report. The place wasn't high-end, just a mid-tier corporate facility with tinted windows and a coffee bar in the lobby. Mason waited in the car with a pair of sunglasses and a cap pulled low. Cole emerged an hour later, towel slung over one shoulder, Bluetooth earpiece in place, talking to someone, probably some other poor soul he was manipulating. He climbed into a black Range Rover, looking every bit the smug alpha male Mason now hated with surgical precision. But Mason didn't confront him. Not yet. He followed him instead. For days, Mason became a ghost. Tracking, listening, watching. He wanted to understand Cole's weaknesses, the cracks in the armor, and it didn't take long to find them. Cole was having multiple affairs. Not just emotional plays. Physical ones. At least 3 women from the same company. Mason saw it all through the lens of Jackson's extended surveillance. A kiss exchanged too casually at a parking garage. A second woman entering his building with an overnight bag. A third holding his hand inside a dimly lit restaurant outside the city. Sienna wasn't the first. She wouldn't have been the last. But she had almost been the next. And that was unforgivable. Meanwhile, at home, things shifted again. One night, Mason found Sienna sitting in their bedroom chair, her eyes rimmed red, her makeup smudged from crying alone. I told HR, she said, her voice hoarse. About Cole. About everything. Mason raised his brows. Everything. She nodded. The pressure. The private meetings. The messages. He waited. And the shopping trip. Her chin trembled. That too. I told him it was inappropriate. That he crossed lines. That I almost did too. He said nothing for a long time. Then, almost is still a choice. I know. You're lucky I still see you when I look at you. Her eyes widened. He turned away. Because for a while, all I saw was him touching you. But Sienna didn't know that Mason was planning something that went far beyond HR complaints. He didn't just want Cole gone. He wanted Cole's reputation annihilated. He wanted his own redemption carved from the ruin of the man who dared to target his wife. And to do that, he needed one more player. Her name was Leah Owens, a soft-spoken woman who had worked under Cole until she quietly transferred apartments last year. Mason reached out through a fake LinkedIn account, posing as an anonymous journalist doing a story on corporate harassment. To his surprise, she responded. They met in a cafe 3 towns over. She wore no makeup and kept her eyes on the door like someone afraid of being followed. I knew someone would come eventually, she said, without greeting. What happened between you and Cole? Mason asked directly. Leah chuckled, bitter and brittle. He ruined me. Told me I'd get promoted if I played along. I didn't. I filed a complaint. The company covered it up. And he spread rumors until I had to leave the department just to keep my sanity. Would you talk to someone about it officially? If there were others. Leah stared at him. You're not a journalist, are you? No, Mason said softly. I'm someone who almost lost his wife to that bastard. She closed her eyes for a moment. Yeah, she said finally. I'll talk. That night, Mason sat on the edge of the bed beside Sienna. She was brushing her hair again, like the night he first asked about a trip. But now, she avoided the mirror. I need you to do something for me, he said. She paused. I need you to tell HR everything. In writing. Name the others. Even if you're scared. Even if it risks your job. Do it, not for me. For you. Sienna looked at him through the mirror, eyes trembling. Why now? Because you don't get to heal by pretending it didn't happen. She turned. And what about you? When do you heal? When he's finished. Mason whispered. What followed over the next week was methodical and ruthless. Mason coordinated with Jackson and Leah. The 3 other women he'd identified agreed to provide statements. 2 even had screenshots and call logs. A complete pattern of manipulation emerged. Promotion offers, dinner meetings, late-night messages. HR was overwhelmed. Cole was pulled into a closed-door meeting on a Friday morning. By Monday, he was gone. No goodbye email. No farewell party. Just gone. But Mason still wasn't satisfied. Because people like Cole always land on their feet. They resurface somewhere else, spin the story, gaslight their past. Not this time. Mason uploaded a file. Anonymously. It went to multiple media outlets. Inside were redacted copies of the complaints, interview transcripts, with names removed, audio snippets from Jackson's surveillance, including the infamous line, "Guys like him don't change. He's probably cheating on her too." The story exploded online within 48 hours. Corporate predator fired after multiple complaints surface. Allegations include quid pro quo promotions, targeting married employees. Cole's photo was plastered across headlines. His LinkedIn page disappeared. His Instagram went private. One of his ex-wives even posted a cryptic message that fueled the fire. The man was finished. And Mason? He slept. Peacefully. For the first time in weeks. 2 weeks passed. Cole was gone. Sienna was still there. But Mason felt like they were standing in the same house, miles apart. They barely touched. They said all the right things. Good night, drive safe, love you. But it all sounded like they were playing characters in someone else's life. One night, after putting the kids to bed, Mason found Sienna standing in the dark kitchen, staring out the window, crying quietly. "I hate what I let happen," she said. "He didn't move. You didn't cross the line." Her voice cracked. "But I wanted to. That's what scares me." Mason finally walked to her, resting his hand on the counter beside hers. "I almost cheated in my first marriage," he said. "Then I almost cheated on you in Dallas, 4 years ago. You just never knew." Sienna looked at him, stunned. He nodded. "I told myself I'd never ruin another marriage. But I stood right at the edge. Just like you did." She whispered, "Why didn't you?" "Because I remembered what guilt feels like. And I knew I couldn't carry it again." Sienna wiped her tears. "So what do we do now?" Mason exhaled. "We stop pretending. And we start fixing. Together. For real." They began seeing a therapist twice a week. They didn't hold back. Mason spoke about his past affairs, his shame, how he still struggled with trust. Sienna admitted how Cole made her feel seen, valued. Things Mason used to do without effort, but had stopped noticing. They both cried. Sometimes they left in silence. But they kept showing up. And slowly, things changed. At home, the kids noticed first. Lily started drawing family portraits again, with all 4 of them holding hands. Mason noticed Sienna's laugh had returned. Not the forced, cheerful one, but the one from before. They began cooking together, watching old movies, and falling asleep on the couch. One night, while folding laundry, Sienna pulled something from a drawer. The black dress Cole had told her by. Without a word, she handed it to Mason. "Burn it," she said. He took it outside, lit it in their fire pit, and stood beside her as it turned to ash. Neither of them said a word. But closure wasn't done yet. The following week, Mason received a package at the door. No name, just a USB inside. Curious, he plugged it in. It was a video. A man sat in a hotel room, speaking directly to the camera. Mason didn't recognize him until he mentioned Cole. "I worked under Cole Stratton. I saw everything. I was told to stay quiet. But your wife, she didn't deserve what he tried to do to her." This is the truth. It was a confession from Cole's assistant. Apparently, after seeing the fallout, the assistant quit and decided to expose everything Cole had done, including bribery, harassment, even covering up complaints. Mason showed it to Sienna. She broke down again, not from shame, but from relief. For once, the truth hadn't just destroyed. It had saved something too. 6 months later, the cracks in their marriage had healed into something stronger. Not perfect, but real. Mason and Sienna didn't try to pretend the past hadn't happened. They talked about it. They faced it. And with every hard conversation, they found each other again. They still went to therapy, still struggled sometimes. But love had returned, not as a spark, but as a steady flame. One crisp morning in late April, Mason was cleaning out the garage when he found a shoebox. Inside were old letters, journals, and photos from their first year of marriage. Among them, he found a note Sienna had written but never given him. It was dated 4 years ago, the time he almost slipped in Dallas. I don't know if I should be worried. But Mason's voice sounded different tonight. I trust him. I love him. But something in my gut feels off. His heart stopped. She'd known. She'd felt it, just like he had with her. That night, he gave her the letter. Sienna read it in silence, tears welling up. I don't even remember writing this, she whispered. But it's the moment we almost broke, Mason said. And didn't. She looked up. We survived twice, Mason. He nodded. And the third time, we didn't survive. We fought. Sienna leaned forward, resting her forehead on his. I don't want to fight anyone but you ever again. 3 days later, Mason got a call. It was Jackson Voss. I thought you should know, he said. Cole Stratton tried applying for a director role at another firm, but someone sent them the files anonymously. He didn't get the job. Mason smiled faintly. Good. But he knows it came from you. I don't care. Jackson chuckled. Figured you wouldn't. Just stay sharp. Guys like that never really disappear. Mason hung up and walked back into the kitchen, where Sienna was laughing with the kids. For a second, he stood in the doorway, watching them, his family. His war was over, and he had won it clean. Not by ruining Sienna, not by hiding the truth, but by letting it all come to light and standing in it with her.